Hello everybody and welcome to part 3 of the Battle of White Plains custom multiplayer game. Let's quickly review the battle up to this point. Here with turn number 1, you can see the Federals arriving from the northern part of the map and the Confederates arriving along the southern edge of the map. We've only gone through a few turns here, but you can see the armies are advancing towards the center of the board, where they're inevitably going to meet probably around that White Plains area where the different objectives are located. We are now at turn number 4 in the game. It is 11:40 a.m., so the next turn that we do will be turn number 5, occurring at noontime. And that also means it is time for the two sides to have their command meetings. So we're going to begin first with the Confederate command meeting. The conversation began with Stonewall Jackson saying, "I don't see much to change from our original plan to attack the force coming up on White Plains Road. The only question is how much of you can join the attack without exposing our left flank to an attack from the Midway direction. I think their column on the Brooks Corner Road is a few turns away from being able to join the fight. For us, it is how quickly we can get AP Hill into action. This is shaping up to be a slugging match with little room to maneuver around White Plains. If they do attack, we will have the advantage of interior lines. If the enemy advances on White Plains from the north, we will attack that column. If that column halts and moves to the west, we will pivot and then attack towards Midway. The Confederates have a main plan and a backup plan here, which is always a good idea in games where you have limited communications between the different commanders. So I like that the Confederates are going to try and concentrate against one enemy column as best they can, and if necessary, pivot to a different plan. Let's go over to the Union command meeting now. It began with General Reynolds saying, "I am concerned about the safety of Ricketts's column moving on White Plains from the north. If the enemy attacks them, they will be unsupported by the rest of the army." General McDowell agreed. "I agree with your assessment of the situation on Ricketts's front. I believe Ricketts should fall back a little and consolidate his division before continuing any advance on White Plains. If they do not attack Ricketts, then the most logical place to attack is Midway. I will move my forces into a defensive position in anticipation of this. I would appreciate the enemy attacking at Midway, as that is where I would like the battle to happen. King will continue on to Brooks Corner. If the enemy does not appear, he will turn east to join the battle." The Federal plan is pretty simple. See what happens on Ricketts's front, but anticipate the main battle being fought between Midway and White Plains. And I think the Federals have done a really good job here anticipating what the Confederates are going to be doing. Both sides have some good plans in place, so let's see what happens. The battle resumes. Here is the way the map looked at the end of turn number 4 before the command meetings. And moving forward now to turn number 5, this is after the command meetings have happened. The Confederates have continued to advance towards White Plains to consolidate there, and the Federals continue to move south. If we zoom in on the northern part of the map, you will see the Federal artillery is just now arriving onto the field. The Confederate artillery is already approaching some of the central parts of this battlefield, so they're going to have an early advantage as far as getting their artillery set up in this battle. Moving a bit south now to the White Plains area, you can see Ewell's division is already at White Plains, and Stark's is as well. Just to the north of White Plains is Ricketts's division as it arrives from the north, while Midway is in Federal hands now as Reynolds has advanced to that point and is moving to consolidate his division there. The Federals have captured Brooks Corner as well, and they are nearly convinced that the rebels have no designs on that objective point. How long the Federals are going to hang out around Brooks Corner before they head to the east is unknown, but I don't think it's going to take them long to realize that it's going to be pretty quiet around that objective point. Moving now to turn number 6. Both sides continue to bring up men and guns as they jockey for position around the battlefield. If we zoom in on this part of the map here, you're going to notice that the 6th Virginia Cavalry have snuck around the Federal flank and are moving behind Ricketts's division. That's going to create some problems for the Federals, especially if that cavalry can capture a commander or two, or perhaps help rout the Federal flank. Zooming back out now to the overhead map, we're going to advance to turn number 7 in the game, 12:40 p.m. And the Confederate cavalry remain unseen on the Federal flank and rear, and there's actually another Confederate cavalry regiment heading in that direction now. Ewell, Stark, and Hill are all coming together around White Plains, while for the Federals, they continue to move forces south, and Ricketts continues to solidify his line north-northeast of White Plains. If the Confederates are going to attack Midway instead of Ricketts, now would probably be the best time. Reynolds has not had a chance to set his division yet, but I don't think the Confederates are going to do that. I think they're going to attack Ricketts because that was their original plan. They are playing to win this battle militarily. They aren't so much worried about the objectives at this point. They're just hoping to isolate and crush part of the Federal army. Because of that, the Federals need to get King's division moving to the main battlefield as soon as possible. King is still waiting on the Iron Brigade, which is a couple of turns behind the rest of the division, and he is still consolidating his force around Brooks Corner. Once he begins to move, he has a number of options. He can go directly east towards Reynolds' division along the main road. He could also angle a little bit south of that and follow the railroad line and come in on Reynolds' right flank. Or if he was feeling very adventurous, he could send some troops to the south, use the road to march all the way around the Confederate flank, and possibly, if they don't meet any resistance, move directly to the undefended Confederate objective southeast of White Plains, which is Broad Run. If they can do that, they can really flip the narrative in this battle. Alright, we're going to move to turn number 8 now in the game. It is 1 p.m. And the first real action has occurred in this battle, and it's occurred, not surprisingly, northeast of White Plains. So let's zoom in on that area there. The Confederates attacked Ricketts' division as they came into line and before they were fully set. The Confederates were very aggressive, struck them all across their line, and pushed them back. This forced the Federals to fall back a couple of hundred yards to form a new line just to the north. Also, Robertson's cavalry did outflank the 107th Pennsylvania, and they routed them back to the rear with an attack on their flank. So not only did the Confederates attack from the front, but they also attacked from the flank and the rear, and this has caused Ricketts' entire division to fall back. Zooming back out now on the overhead map, King's division is beginning to turn east to join the main battle, while Reynolds and Sykes continue to consolidate their divisions. King seems to be moving directly east towards Reynolds on the main road to come up directly behind him, and also probably eventually just on his right flank. Turn number 9 in the game. The Confederates continue to move aggressively north of White Plains, while Ricketts' division falls back on Sykes' division to the northwest. Turn number 10 in the game. It is 1:40 p.m. And the two forces continue to spar with one another and reposition their armies. There has been some fighting, but there's been no real major action just yet. Casualties for both sides are under 200. I anticipate that will change over the next couple of hours of game time as the two armies are coming closer together and the artillery is being set up all across the battlefield. We're going to zoom in here just to take one last look before we end up this episode. You can see Brooks Corner is in Federal hands over in the west. Midway in the center of the battlefield is also in Federal hands, while the Confederates have White Plains and Broad Run over to the east and southeast. The Federals have King and Reynolds' division around Midway and Brooks Corner, while Sykes and Ricketts are further to the north. The Confederates have Stark on their right flank with Ewell at White Plains and Hill's division on their left. One thing about Ewell's division at present is that it is very spread out. Ewell has contributed a number of brigades both to Stark and Hill, and he only has one real brigade in front of White Plains. The Confederate center here is very weak, but it is guarded by quite a few artillery pieces. So I'm sure the Confederates aren't too worried about the Federals attacking across those open fields towards White Plains. If they did, it might be kind of interesting. Alright, well that is it for this part of the multiplayer White Plains after action report. It is 2 p.m. in the game. That means it is time for another command meeting for the two sides, and we're going to talk about that in the next episode. So thank you everyone for watching. I always do appreciate the comments I get here on YouTube. Everyone's always been really great about it. I know you guys really enjoy these videos. I enjoy making them for you. Just as a reminder, in the next episode, as I said, we will observe the command meetings for the two sides at the 2 p.m. hour, and we'll find out what the generals have planned for their next move. And then we'll observe the 2 p.m. to 3:40 p.m. turns, as the two sides will probably come together and a larger battle will begin to develop. Until next time, everybody, thanks for watching and keep gaming.